Welcome back to episode number 2 of the new, I don't know if improved, Talkin Gimmicks podcast. Along with me today, as always, Joey, who's the Teddy Hart of the Chikara. How's it going, man?
Julio, how's it going?
And from the open road, just like Son of Havoc, we've got Ryan somewhere in the middle of Texas.
How's it going, guys? Yeah, I'm in Temple, Texas currently.
Temple, Texas. It's like, middle of nowhere. On his way back to the Metroplex area.
Indeed, we had a good party last night in San Antonio. No,
man, making towns.
On my way back.
Yeah, no, I got a little too Ric Flair yesterday. Out at a music deal. Got to see Slayer, which was dope, but I'm paying for it. I'm old this one. Yeah. So, Joe, what you going to? Football, wrestling, all the good stuff?
Yeah. Shoot job, work, and kind of relaxing on the weekends.
There you go. Special guest, Nick Mankind behind you.
Yeah, it's actually the Chef Boyardee ad from '99.
Where'd you get that?
My friend worked at Tops, so that was one of the display stands there. So Tops is like a local grocery store or whatever. Probably.
When you said Tops, I thought like the trading card.
I guess I figure people
Same.
know what everything is automatically, like just because I have it here. You know what I mean? But no, it's like a grocery store, and he worked there, and he would get the displays. And
I was wondering how many like Chef Boyardee labels you have to send for that. Or something like that.
Right.
Anyways, so this week we've got a bunch of stuff to cover. Of course, we'll do our recap of just kind of what's going on, what we've been watching, little gimmick talk here and there. We're going to talk a little bit about a little NWA World Championship Wrestling, which I picked, which I still think was a good pick, although I got some heat from Joey and Ryan because it was boring. We'll get into that, and then we'll wrap up with maybe the saddest I've ever been watching a Chikara show, which was Chikara Never Compromise from 2013, and we'll get into that. Before all of this stuff, Joey, you've got some massive news that we kind of, not really spoiled, but it's all over our Twitter account. Might as well make it official. What's the scoop?
Yeah, we've taken on we're part of the team now, I guess you could say,
A stable, if you will?
A stable of podcasts. The soon-to-be named network. We're in a bit of a probation period right now, but I promised them we'd get the episodes in and fulfill our end of the deal. So,
someone from the soon-to-be named network asked for a 4-page essay from us. I had an intern type Talkin Gimmicks is at work over and over again 4 times on 4 pages. So that might be in the mail somewhere if they did it right. But no, in all seriousness, yes, we are part of the podcasting stable, which is the soon-to-be-named network. Some of the shows on there, which are run by friends of our show, like Long Box Heroes, which is an awesome comic book podcast. So if you guys are into comic books, you definitely need to check them out. Podvocacy, which is our friend David Buchanan. He runs that too. They talk a lot about different pop culture items, and there's a lot more in there. So we're going to continue pumping out episodes as promised. We'll be part of their network, and there you go. We're moving on to bigger and better things, I guess, if you will, right?
Yeah,
Hopefully.
definitely.
Yeah, I think for me it'll be the day that we get a sponsorship from like A-Treat Soda or Wawa or something like that. That's the day I would we've made it big.
That would be like magic to me.
Yeah, that and the fact that we did get a kind of an endorsement from Mike Quackenbush after we did the King of Trios special was legit maybe the shining moment of our show, I think.
Yeah, oh, that was really, really cool to be able to sit down and talk with you guys and then have, Quack acknowledge us and point people to us. It was really cool.
Yeah, we are very, very huge fans of Chikara and all those guys. So let's get into it. Joey, I know you have a lot of notes of some of the new stuff and the ongoing current stuff that you wanted to talk about. Do you want to start with Evolve? Let's start with Evolve. Let's start with Evolve because they've currently been kind of making a lot of buzz out there in the Twitterverse. What you got on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's if you look at that roster, there's a lot of talent on that roster. And with mainly with Gargano leaving the Indies, I kind of wanted to make sure to check out Evolve 69. And Ethan Page is making an impact down there at Evolve. And he actually kind of has been a little – set something up. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but he's been acting like him and Gargano are friends. And there's been videos of him behind him and smiling in a little maniacal way and everything. And
I saw a picture on Twitter about that.
Yeah, there was a picture he put up there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of all been planned. And now that Gargano's taken off to the next level, Ethan Page attacked him after his match. He tagged with Cody Rhodes, Gargano did, in the main event of that Evolve 69. Right after that, Ethan Page came down, attacked him. And then that's when he announced the Gatekeepers, which are, if you don't know, I mean, a lot of people didn't know who they were. Joey Styles was on commentary. He didn't know. It was Devastation Corporation of Blaster McMassive and Flex Rumble Crunch.
So that was all a buzz when that happened, right? But I guess the question, because I in Evolve, I'm just starting to get into it, and I think one of the reasons, like you said, their rosters loaded with good wrestlers. But are they working there as Blaster and Flex, or just as the Gatekeepers, or what's the deal?
I guess they didn't really say names. They just called them the Gatekeepers. They had pretty much ties on. You know what I mean?
They were like suited up, right?
Yeah, they were dressed nice, for the occasion and everything. And they didn't say their names. They just were known as the Gatekeepers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with that.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out and check out the upcoming shows, just because we can go through some of the names on there. So you've got Flex and Blaster that we're familiar with from Chikara. Ethan Page, who is awesome. Matt Riddle, Drew Gulak,
Dustin.
Tracy Williams, Dustin,
Drew Galloway, yeah, Chris Hero.
Yeah, it's Thatcher's there too. It's a crazy. It's definitely a loaded roster, and I think now what I've noticed is that, and maybe I haven't paid attention in the past, but just now that I've noticed, there's more stories being pushed, which I think is really cool, especially with a lot of those guys and how really talented they are. And then the other thing is they're doing these little video segments. They did one like little mini kind of 5-minute documentaries that they post on their YouTube page. Have you guys checked those out?
Yeah, they put a lot of good stuff on their YouTube page, actually.
Yeah, I'm definitely digging all the content that they're pumping out. So it's definitely something for us to check out. I know, based on what I was able to see from your notes, Joey, I guess you're a pretty big Matt Riddle fan?
I'm coming around, man. I mean, I didn't really know too much about him a while ago, but the more I see, man, he's got that look. A lot of people compare him to Kerry Von Erich even.
Whoa.
Which I know is a little bit crazy. I know, hold on a minute. But for only really being in the business for about a year or so, or whatever it's been, he's impressed a lot of people.
Yeah, he's definitely, and I guess the way I gauge it is I see so many people either tweeting about him or retweeting about him or posting stuff, and it's all praises, right? I haven't really seen anyone complain or try to bury him. So yeah, I think it's a guy that I'll definitely have to pay attention to. I think we all have to pay attention to, and then the more we follow Evolve, we'll see what they do with him. I know he's part of Catchpoint, right?
Yeah, and actually, if you go on YouTube, their YouTube channel, it's they put up his match against T.J. Perkins from Evolve '69 in completion. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a good match to check out too. So,
cool. All right, so we've got Evolve there. Something we'll definitely be following a little more closely on our end. Then, of course, Lucha Underground. I don't know if you guys were able to catch it. I watch it every week. I'm kind of hooked on it.
What was the Wheel of Doom match? I think I caught it.
Yeah, they did the whole wheel, which I'm not really too high on that. I mean, I think it's cool, but for me, it should be like, like the WCW spin the wheel, make the deal thing. But yeah, it was an interesting episode, I guess, in terms of action. It was, there's been better episodes, I would say.
Yeah.
Matanza against the Mac was the wheel match.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matanza came out. Mac was just, it was a solid match. The Mac is always really entertaining.
Exactly. I love the Max.
But Matanza is he's a beast, man. Matanza's definitely a beast. So that was the wheel match. And it was pretty good. Matanza wins, as expected. Then they had an awesome segment. Did you catch that segment where they're, I think first it was the Son of Havoc and Mascarita Sagrada. We're watching Famous B, like a Famous B commercial in his basement.
Famous B commercial. Oh,
yeah.
Famous.
And it was just hilarious because it was definitely a comedy segment. They're pissed off at Famous B. And I think the funniest part was when Son of Havoc's mom's offering them bagel bites and Mascarita's all 4 bagel bites, which is kind of funny. I mean, I don't know if that was I'm assuming that's like product placement or whatever.
Definitely some product placement. If it's not, they're at least saying, hey guys, we can do some product placement, so call us.
Right.
Because that was perfect.
So
I really like the way that they're doing the in-between match segments on that show. Makes it feels a lot better than some of the stuff that you see on Raw. Or for me, I go back to 2011 TNA weirdness. Just always felt uncomfortable. I really like the stylized version that Lucha Underground presents.
Yeah, no, I think in this episode, maybe the cutscenes were more, the vignettes were more entertaining than the actual in-ring action. And then right after that, there's a little segment with Ricky Mandel coming. A bunch of people came into Dario Cueto's office. Dario obviously was doing blow.
Yeah,
you don't see it, but you see emotion towards kind of like the snorting part of it, and then I think was it Taya who pointed out that
and stuff. Yeah.
Taya points out that he has something in the nose.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that they would just go in that direction so blatantly.
I know. I like it. I like that they pushed the envelope there. And then in terms of in-ring stuff, we talked about the songs. Cage and Tejano, I guess Dario was pushing it as that the winner here would get a opportunity or something like that.
Yeah.
Cage wins, but Dario, as always, comes out at the swerve and makes this that's that 5 series here.
Yeah, that was really unexpected.
Which I think was interesting. I think Tejano have some good runs in AAA, and as a heel, he can be really entertaining. I don't think they've done much with him in Lucha Underground, so it would be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool to see them give him a little bit more of a spotlight. And then the main event match, which was the Trios title match, Drago, Phoenix, and Aerostar, who are, of course, 2015 King of Trios, against Worldwide Underground of PJ Black, Jack Evans, and Taya, which is pretty interesting. I would have thought that Johnny Mundo would be thrown in there, but he wasn't. And
yeah,
any
like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just kind of surprised and disappointed because I hadn't seen him wrestle in a while. I was looking forward to seeing him as he kind of dodged the whole thing in the vignette.
Yeah, I mean, I think the match was okay, but for the people involved, it could have been much better. And then, at the end, they had Sexy Star run out. It was kind of a little bit of a cluster, if you will. But I would say this week, I mean, the best moments were.
It's episode 3 of the season. There's things going on. I mean, there's story movement. And I thought it did a really good job of. Me having not watched the first 2 episodes, even still told a coherent story. I was immediately picking up and run with it. Even the opening scene with Mysterio and Azteca, I think.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
That was really cool.
Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah, I like the Chavo's involved, and seems like he's about to, be involved in the title picture. Hopefully, that'll be cool.
Yeah, I think. I guess it was kind of you went from last week, which was the Weapons of Mass Destruction match, and there was the whole medallion thing, and it was like such a packed episode between pushing story, great little segments. In-ring action was crazy. And then this week, you went from a high, and then, anything that came out this week was going to be would probably be underwhelming. So I guess they realized, let's just make it. Felt almost like one of those filler episodes in the series, in the season. And even then, for a filler episode, it wasn't really bad. But definitely, not going to be a classic season 3 episode, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to take what you can from where you're at in the storytelling.
Yeah. Cool. So that's it for Lucha. I know today we have I haven't been too invested with Raw, but we've got a pay-per-view, right?
Clash of Champions tonight. Yeah, Raw brand only.
This whole thing with the pay-per-view every couple weeks kind of thing, I don't know. I don't like it personally, right?
As someone that doesn't even keep up with the weekly shows, the idea of having 2 pay-per-views a month is daunting, to say the least.
I don't know. I kind of like it because, I don't know. For some reason when I was a kid or whatever, it was always the pay-per-view was coming up and you'd get real excited, you know what I mean? Once a month or whatever, once every couple months. For some reason that never left me. So shit, there could be a pay-per-view every Sunday and I wouldn't mind because odds are I have nothing else going on really on a Sunday night. You're ready for work the next week and stuff like that. But I don't mind a pay-per-view as long as the Bills aren't playing on a Sunday night, But they got their win earlier, so that's all right. Had to get that in there.
Yeah, you gotta get your. By the way, I saw the. How they come out every week with some crazy shit Bills fans do at the tailgates.
Oh yeah, sure.
I saw a video today where some Bills fans. There was a dude on a fold-out table, and one dude leapt off of a car.
Yeah.
Leaped off of a car and with a flying elbow through the table. I don't know. It looks crazy. You've been to Bills tailgating.
Oh
Isn't
yeah.
that crazy?
Oh, it's crazy, man. That's nothing. It's a normal Sunday.
Football fans are crazy. I like baseball a little more chill. Anyways, going back to the whole Clash of the Champions thing. Yeah, I get, that now that they're the brand split, they're doing a whole separate pay-per-views. But if they don't have, I guess there's so much stuff going on and so much wrestling out there and so much things to keep up with that it was already, at least for us, for most people, to keep up with like one, like when it was just one brand. Now that it's two brands, it's like it could be a little daunting. But we'll run through the match list. I mean, there's some good ones here, like Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a clean finish. Something weird is going to happen there.
Oh, I'm sure something's going
I
to go
take
down.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, and I mean, I think it'll be good, but it's not going to be something crazy is going to happen there for sure. Then you've got Cesaro and Sheamus with the best of 7 series. I don't know. I think the way they did it, I'm not really too invested in this. I mean, I guess the winner gets a title shot, right? But I hope Cesaro wins because I want to see more of Cesaro, but not really too invested in that. Rusev Roman Reigns, which they've had their exchanges even in the cage match and this past week on Raw. It'll be all right. New Day against Gallows and Anderson. I really want that feud to end. I mean, they're trying to do like comedy segments that aren't really that funny. I'm kind of over it. The women's match is going to be legit though. The women's title match: Charlotte against Bayley against Sasha Banks, the triple threat.
Yeah, I mean that'll be good.
That should be pretty legit. And then you've got T.J. Perkins against Brian Kendrick for the Cruiserweight Championship. Brian Kendrick won kind of an opportunity to challenge at Raw when it was him against Rich Swann and Cedric Alexander in a triple threat, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it Vitalik involved? No, it's just those two guys, right?
I don't know.
On Raw?
I think it was just, on Raw.
No, it was a 4-way.
Yeah, it was Vitalik too, right?
It was Swan, Kendrick, Metalik, and Cedric Alexander.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, all right. Jericho, Sami Zayn, I want to see that.
Yeah, that'll be good.
I mean, Jericho, he has to be one of the greatest of all time. Like, even now that he's not, like, in-ring, one of the top guys, but in terms of his heel persona, he's, like, so...
No doubt. It's
so
just,
funny.
like, the inflection, the nuance of his performance. Like, he's got that, like, Owen Hart-like thing where there's something in the minutia of just how he acts and how he responds to the audience and how he says things that catches your attention.
He's definitely, I think, one of the all-time greats in that, in knowing how to get what reaction he wants from the crowd. Like there's people nowadays where they want to be heels, but the crowd's cheering for them and they can't do anything to change it. Whereas Jericho will do crazy stuff like he'll come out and tease that he's coming back and runs around and then doesn't say anything. Remember when he came back and did that?
That was hilarious. It was
and he
so
did that for
crazy.
weeks.
Oh yeah, and the people really started to get mad.
Then the gift of Jericho and the list of Jericho and like people that can't cheer him on because he's being a class A douchebag, but that's great.
Yeah.
That's what's great about it.
Right.
So yeah, and again, Sami Zayn, who's definitely nowadays one of the best in-ring guys, I think. That should be pretty good. And then last but not least, Alicia Fox versus Nia Jax, which I'm expecting a squash match. So
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think they're just using this whole storyline to kind of elevate Nia Jax as a legitimate threat in the women's title scene. But anyways, I think overall, I mean, I'm not 100% behind this whole pay-per-view every week, but the SmackDown pay-per-view was pretty good. This one has it has the makings that it could be pretty good. I just feel like it's not going to be really sustainable to keep providing every 2 weeks a good pay-per-view. You know, even when it was just once a month, there were stretches where there was just 2 or 3 really bad pay-per-views right after each other. So
that's the interesting thing about this whole brand splitting is that I feel like at no point in time in the last like 5 years do I really feel like people were screaming for like more WWE content, because so many of us, when we watch, we want so much more out of it, or we want the stories to be more powerful, and it's interesting to me that they're doubling up. You know, I've read some complaints of people talking about, they're not really following up on Triple H interfering and helping Kevin Owens win the title, and it's yeah, I don't know how you guys are feeling about the SmackDown. If they're doing better on SmackDown, I haven't watched it, so I can't really speak to it one way or the other.
Triple H.
It's a lot of wrestling to watch.
No, I agree. Here's the thing, like when I pick and choose what to watch from WWE, and I would say I watch more Raw than SmackDown just out of habit, but I've heard better things about SmackDown, and the fact that it's a 2-hour versus a 3-hour, and they get more done in 2 hours than Raw is in 3. But anyways, that's coming up tonight at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. So that's probably what we'll be doing once we're done with this episode. Any other notes, anything worth mentioning wrestling-wise before we keep it going?
I guess Gargano's farewell Friday night at AIW was kind of cool. You know, he's going up to WWE now, so.
Who'd he wrestle?
Him and Candice actually faced each other, and then it turned into a tag match and against I want to say Greg Iron and up and comer Alex Daniels. So that was cool.
Yeah, so I think, other than that, there's so much going on. Like New Japan had a show yesterday. I'm not going to really get into New Japan. Just kind of note, Naito won the Intercontinental title from Michael Elgin, and I'm a huge Naito fan, so that was a good thing. And the other thing of note, Captain New Japan is, I guess, now part of the Bullet Club, which is weird and kind of lame, but whatever.
Wait, did you say Captain New Japan?
Captain New Japan, yeah.
Yeah, he turned heel, I heard. Yeah, I read that.
Dude, like he turned on Yoshitatsu, who's like the Hunter Club, like the Bullet Club Hunter or whatever. And he apparently is with Bullet Club. So I think Bullet Club's gotten to the point where, when like NWO had like also everyone, like Scott Norton and all these different people who like I didn't care for. I guess that's where it's getting to, but I mean, Kenny Omega's getting a really good push with New Japan. He's going to probably challenge for the belt at Wrestle Kingdom, and Adam Cole is part of the Bullet Club now, and he's the Ring of Honor champion. So, I mean, they still got momentum, but sometimes it's like, why Captain New Japan? But whatever. Anyways, that's it for kind of the coming up to speed with what's going on and around the wrestling world, at least the one you watch, because there's so much stuff out there. Any new gimmicks, Jay?
No, not really. No, I haven't really been able to go out too much, and this area has nothing really news came out,
Yeah, Houston, as I've said before, when it comes to like going out to find like at the Target and Walmart, it really sucks. Like I still see on the shelves like Defining Moments Undertaker, and like the Elite Hall of Fame, like with was it last year or this year with Jimmy Hart and Macho Man?
Yeah, that was probably around Christmas time, yeah.
Like, that's still what's happening. So I kind of had to take action into my own hands, and I Amazoned a couple things. The new Bret Hart pop, of course. I had to get that, being a big Bret Hart fan. I think it's really cool, but I would have loved to see pink shades.
Yeah.
Pink shades would have been the clincher, but overall.
Did he used to wear black shades like that ever?
When he was, I remember the Hart Foundation, when like he was the like tag team Hart Foundation, he used to wear black shades. And maybe early in his singles run. But like, it's not anywhere near as the iconic, pink wraparound shades that he eventually used. And the series is pretty legit. It has, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens. Those are the two that I really want from there. And, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, and Eva Marie. So pick that out. The other thing at Amazon, which I really wanted, was the Samoa Joe Elite.
Nice. Yeah, I grabbed that a few weeks ago myself.
Here's my complaint, though, and Amazon that's kind of the dice roll when you order figures from Amazon, is that you don't know sometimes in what condition they're going to show up. You go like Ringside Collectibles, usually they're pretty careful in sending you stuff. Or you go buy them at retail and you can pick out whatever's in good condition. Amazon's kind of like a mixed bag. And at first I was really happy because I opened the Amazon box. I ordered a couple more things, and the Samoa Joe was bubble wrapped. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. They're being mindful of that. But they taped this top tab down. So it was like pushed down and taped.
Oh, wow.
And then on the plastic, like, I don't know if you can see it, they had a thing of tape across it, which they used when they were bubble wrapping this thing. So I wouldn't say the Samoa Joe is mint on cards. There's some of the tape damage, but it's the dice roll when you order them. And then I was at Walgreens on Friday. Walgreens, yeah. And I picked up Elite Triple H, the one from his WrestleMania outfit from this year. This year, right? Or last year? Last year. Yeah, WrestleMania 31.
Which one is that?
The one that looks like the Terminator?
Yes.
Last year, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, no, last year's probably going to come out this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they always come out a year after, right?
Yeah.
I will say these are like I love the Triple H like WrestleMania specific elites, and I think we talked about it before. Like there's some sort of deal that he has that every WrestleMania gear that he comes out with becomes an elite, right?
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah. So he has the badass Terminator kind of look. So yeah, that's the pickups for this week. Again, Houston's really kind of dry when it comes to that, but it's getting better. But still, compared to some of the things, like I saw someone post on Twitter that they found 2 Finn Balor's elites at Big Lots for like $10 each, stuff like that. We don't get that as much here. All right. So anyways, let's talk. We're going to transition into NWA.
Yeah.
Let's talk about NWA. So I picked NWA World Championship Wrestling from July 23rd, 1988. And the reason behind this, I've been watching a lot of promos from that, specifically that NWA era. specifically Ric Flair and Dusty promos. So I'm like, I want to watch one of these to see what's up. Let's start with just overall thoughts. What did you guys think coming into this, and then after you watched it overall of this NWA era?
I didn't really know what to expect, I guess. I'm sure that I've seen some matches from this promotion before. I was vaguely familiar with some of the names on the card, but I didn't really have any sort of expectations necessarily. Only watched like half the show. I apologize for that, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting that the promos drew you to watching that promotion, because I thought, every promo that I saw was like highly entertaining at the very least.
That's a good point you bring up. Like, they were really heavy on like the promos and that kind of stuff in the show. It was actually, the promos were way better than the action for sure. But like almost after every match, whoever won cut a promo. In between some of the matches, there would be a different segment of a promo that was cut and recorded before. So they were really heavy on that to sell rivalries and matchups and stuff like that.
I thought it was very interesting because that's what Chikara is doing right now, of course, as well. I mean, we saw it at King of Trios even, right? I believe. Yeah. And they've definitely been doing it at the Russell Factory shows. We kind of omitted earlier that Chikara had their Facebook live streaming event last week or the week before.
The Black Goodbye?
The Black Goodbye. And my point is that they've been having, these interviews after the matches, which has been really cool to watch it for me as well. I think it adds something to the energy of the promo.
Yeah, and I think at the very least, what they try to do is try to get you invested in, like, even though the action wasn't as great, we'll get more into that. I was invested in, like, hearing Ron Garvin, talk or whatever, like what their motives were, why they wanted to do what they were doing. So I thought that was overall pretty cool. Joey, any thoughts on the show? I know you kind of buried it before we started.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I respect older wrestling and stuff like that, but I mean, when this was live, I was only a couple of years old, so like going back and watching it now, I don't know if it's because we're spoiled or whatever, but it's like ham-handed, you know what I mean? A little bit to me, like it's just a little goofy, and obviously I understand you got to go with the times and stuff like that, but it's cool to see the guys because it's like it's almost 30 years ago. See guys like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Midnight Express, Gary Hart, Paul Ellering was even on the show, I think, too.
Like, if you go through that list you mentioned, it's star-studded. If you just like,
for sure.
Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Tully Blanchard, the Road Warriors, Paul Ellering, Gary Hart, Jim Cornette, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express. I mean, it's loaded in terms of the people, the talent. But and I also, if you look at this era, kind of into the 90s, this was an era where like jobbers were jobbers, right? And like stars were stars, because you had all these guys go up against like people I'm not familiar with. Like and they looked and acted like jobbers, and that's what they were, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, huh?
I was curious to hear some explanation of that statement, but I don't want you to like work you into a corner. I didn't understand what you necessarily meant.
Jobbers being jobbers?
Yeah, what does a jobber look like?
Well, if you look at now, like every week there's Dolph Ziggler against The Miz, or Seth Rollins against Roman Reigns. Like it's the stars always are fighting each other, whereas back in the day they had these guys that were not groomed the same way that Sting, like physically in appearance and personality, Like you had folks like Sting and Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes who were like over the top, big personalities, you know, great looks. And then you had these guys that didn't have the look, didn't have the personality, didn't have the same type of, I guess, appearance. And then you can tell, like, these are the guys, you know, the Ric Flairs, the Dusty Rhodes, the Sting, the Road Warriors. These are the guys they're pushing as stars. And then you have these other guys who were just there as talent to enhance the stars, the other stars, right? If that makes sense, right?
Right. Well, and it's all symbiotic and everything. I mean, it's definitely like it's never any insult to the person that's doing the job, you know. Yeah,
No.
I think it's one of those things. It's a sign of the times. I mean, that's how the WWF changed the game. Is, you know, they started to do that where they were like, oh well, let's just make the show all superstars.
Right. And back in the day, and if you notice it in the show, they were pushing, like they were pushing their like pay-per-views or their big events where these stars were actually going to fight each other. You know, where we were going to have Lex Luger against Ric Flair, and we were going to have the Midnight Express against Tully Blanchard and Arn. So, in a sense, you know, these were more like just showcasing these big stars, and they weren't going to showcase them against each other. They were trying to get the payoff in a pay-per-view in a bigger arena.
Right. Yeah, that's the beauty of the NWA. I always have been kind of fascinated with that whole structure. As I learned more about it, you know, it's the whole way of linking up these small federations and kind of using it to help everyone out, and try to grow the whole thing at the same time is really interesting and very cool.
Yeah. So let's go through what went down. Show starts, kind of a callback, the Tower of Doom. That's going to be like one of the big events coming up. You've got Tony Schiavone rocking a mustache, super 80s. Baby Jim Ross and David Crockett. That's the commentary announce team. They enter it. You go straight to action. It's the Russian assassin who I'd never, ever had seen in my life, with Ivan Koloff and Paul Jones against a dude named Trent Knight, which, you know, as we talked about, these were the folks that, you know, they were, I guess, talent enhancement, if you will, to put it in a nicer way. But jobbers is the wrestling kind of carny speak term for it. Nothing to write home about, right?
No, I mean, this, you know, Russian Assassin was impressive to watch, and, you know, Koloff, I liked the management. I liked the presentation of it. But, I mean, yeah, nothing insane happened. Trent Knight also had an awesome mustache.
There was a lot of awesome mustaches and crazy haircuts in the NWA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a lot of mullets and, like, a lot of weirdness going on.
Joey, I know in your program notes you had that Russian assassin, or I think you tweeted it. That's the only thing that kind of popped here.
That's the only thing I remember from the show is the Russian assassin, and then he was pretty damn big, man.
He wasn't like big show. He was more a little more.
He was like cut kind of, man. He was pretty damn muscular, you know.
So
kind of like a Cesaro almost, but like a little bit bigger,
a little taller,
beefier.
Yeah,
a little taller and beefier, yeah. But yeah, they cut a little promo after. I mean, obviously, Russian Assassin just smashed the guy pretty much. But after the match, they cut a little promo outside the ring.
Yeah, Paul Jones.
Yeah,
this cowboy-looking dude cuts a promo. You know who the referee was, by the way, for the whole night?
I guess I really didn't even look.
Ryan, did you pay attention?
What did you ask?
Who was the referee?
Don't know his name.
Teddy Long.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
For real?
Teddy Long. They mentioned his name, but then, as you guys know, that NWA World Class Championship Wrestling became WCW. And Teddy Long was a referee there, and then he became a manager and all that stuff. But he was not making tag matches. He was actually refereeing matches at the end of the
awesome.
So Russian Assassin wins. We keep this show rolling. Next match is the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers versus Chris Champion, who was rocking a mullet like Kenny Powers.
Super mullet and fake jeans or whatever. Yeah. That was totally weird.
And Tommy Royal, who's, again, back to this conversation, right? Tommy Royal looked like a blunt.
Sean Royal, right?
I think it was Tommy Royal or Sean Royal. But I
looked it up because I was super curious about these guys because of the finish of this match, which I just thought was totally ridiculous. And I had to know why this Royal guy would let that even happen. Which I know it's weird to jump to the end of the match, but basically the finish is that Champion tags out to Royal. Royal comes in like relatively fresh, gets headlocked and rolled up in the opposite corner immediately.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is the deal here? So I looked him up, and they're a tag team known as the New Breed, and their gimmick, apparently they had some kind of futuristic gimmick. I did not pick up on anything like that, so I don't know if we were before or after the New Breed gimmick, but that was an interesting moment just to see that ending happen. I was like, what was the point there?
Right, and I guess they were really selling the Fantastics as kind of a threat in the tag team division. But you bring up a good point. It was like he gets a fresh tag, he comes in, it gets rolled up.
Immediately pulled over, just dragged over to the corner, win a headlock, and then you're done. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of a lame finish. They use this to enhance the fact that the Fantastics were up and coming.
Right.
We move on. It's Ron Garvin with Gary Hart against a dude named Tommy Angel. And, Ron Garvin, I'll give him, he was legit. Like, from all the people in the show, his strikes were the most believable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I enjoyed this match.
It put him over as a psychopath, and they did a good job in doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
When he's stomping around on the limbs and they're talking on commentary, he does this for money. That's why he does it.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this guy is stone cold, just mercenary.
Yeah, and Garvin crushed this too, right? He wins with a knockout punch, and his, the nickname they're calling him Hands of Stone, right? So Garvin knocks him out with a punch, gets the pin. And then we cut to probably the most interesting promo of the whole show.
Yes.
Ryan, you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know you texted us when that went down.
Well, it's just one of these things. Gary Hart starts unloading. I mean, it was a very personal, very intense comments when he started saying, I can't remember what the comment was about his mother, but Dusty's mother, but then he says that your father was a drunk and he died in a ditch. And I was just thinking, you could never say that on Raw now. You could never say that. That is just it's too hard.
Yeah, he basically called like his mom like a piece of Texas trash, I think. And then when you said that Dusty's father was an alcoholic and whatever. And I mean, I don't know if this was a work shoot or a shoot, but it was like super personal. And he talks back.
It gave a whole vibe to that thing.
Right.
I feel like that's something that's awesome about that old era of wrestling, where the feuds and the legacies and stuff really do feel personal, unlike WWE.
And that's why the payoffs, like maybe these little episodes were kind of lame, but the payoffs, the big matches, were so entertaining because these feuds would boil for weeks and months until you had the actual match, and you were already so invested in there, right?
Yeah.
So Gary cuts his promo. He calls Dr. Death. He calls him on his "Who do you ever kill, sucker?" Maybe Oklahoma football. Gary Hart was entertaining. I'll give him that.
Very much.
we move on. It's Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. They go up again. No, they didn't. It was just a promo, right? Just a promo. And they're basically the whole gist of the promo is that they're the best tag team. The tag team champions are, of course, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson. We're friends, but we're gonna kind of have to stop being that because the only team that can beat you guys is the Midnight Express. And Jim Cornette, whatever, nowadays, his weird online persona, but he's always been one of the most entertaining men, I think.
Absolutely. He's a legend on the microphone. I mean,
Yeah.
he is someone that understands the show. And yeah, whatever disagreements he does have with whoever philosophically, whether you agree with him or not, you really can't deny that when he takes the mic. I mean, he has got a full character, and everything that he says has purpose. I loved the last line of this promo where he said, the only people we haven't beaten are the ones we haven't wrestled. That to me is the ultimate, just like, you're at the top of your game, but you're still the underdog somehow. I thought that was a beautiful execution of that promo.
That was legit. Yeah, that, and the way he ended it was legit. I think that was another great promo. And again, like, I could have just watched the promos for this show and not watched the matches, and I would have been completely happy.
Yes.
Then we go into another. There's a lot of stuff in 2 hours, so we'll kind of try to blast through the last part of it.
Yeah, we're pretty much at the point where I stopped watching too.
Yeah.
So you'll have to carry this.
Al Perez against a dude named Dave Isley. Al Perez, who I think was managed by Gary Hart.
Yes.
Al Perez, who kind of looks like a Latino Seth Rollins, just a little bit here.
Yeah.
He gets the win pretty easy. He's part of Gary Hart's crew with Ron Garvin. After that match, there's a Dusty Rhodes promo. Again, he's heated. He's upset, and he does say a line about Gary Hart, and he goes, "When you bring in families into the discussion, that's how injuries happen."
Oh, I love it. Yeah, they really try to up it to that blood feud level. It's like, you crossed the line.
Yeah, he cuts a short. It was a really short promo. He does the whole funky like a monkey, whatever. He does. He gets his motivation across. Put it that way. Next match, it's the Rock and Roll Express against George South and a masked dude named Agent Steel. Again, the Rock and Roll Express were the stars. The other dudes were kind of the jobbers. Double drop kick in the Rock and Roll Express. Nothing to write home about. Road Warriors against a dude named J.C. Wild and another dude named Rick Allen. I mean, you go down the list, and that's why these guys, no one knows these guys. Road Warriors destroy a power slam from the second row from Animal on one of the other dudes. And nice little promo afterwards. And Hawk calls someone a neo-Nazi Zoom baby, which is so 80s. So 80s. And the Road Warriors basically, call out Ronnie Garvin and say that they have Dusty's back. We move on. It's Mike Rotunda, who's the TV champ and part of the Varsity Club with Kevin Sullivan and not Scott Steiner, the other Rick Steiner. They're all in their Letterman jackets, Michigan, Syracuse, against a dude named Gary Phelps. Rotunda wins with a slingshot suplex. Nothing to write home about again. Kevin Sullivan cuts a really good promo here after the match. He talks about eating monkey brains with some like indigenous people and spending time with lepers, laying with lepers in Calcutta. He gets this weird, like a journey type of like where he's been through, which is really interesting. I mean, Kevin Sullivan, he's the man. I've loved Kevin Sullivan, what he's done in that era. And then he got a little goofy, like in the early '90s with the Faces of Pain and the Dungeon of Doom and all that stuff. But he was legit. One of the things I will point out, Dusty Rhodes has so many enemies at this point. Like Gary Hart calls him out. The Horsemen call him out. Kevin Sullivan calls him out. Like everyone hates Dusty. Like all the villains.
Everyone wants a piece of Dusty. It's hard to be at the top.
I know. It was pretty cool because it really elevates Dusty as like, oh, this guy's a legit, he's legit.
He's like Superman. I mean,
Yeah.
it is awesome. I love Dusty. I love the heroic figure of Dusty. It is one of the things that will just never fail to bring like joy to my life. I have the American Dream theme song like on my phone, and I listen to it when I need to boost myself up.
Right. Yeah. Next match, Tully Blanchard against a dude named Ryan Wagner. Tully wins. Easy. Then it's a promo with him and J.J. Dillon and Arn Anderson. He's rocking a sweet Four Horsemen satin jacket, by the way. I'm not a big fan of J.J. Dillon, by the way. I feel like he wasn't like I didn't get his purpose. Like Arn and Tully and Rick were cool, and he was like wanted to be cool, but wasn't. I don't know. Next up, Barry Windham against a dude whose name is Dill LaPerouse, who looks like a skinny Kenny Powers. Windham wins with the claw. Super boring match. And this is kind of like what you were saying. The rest of the show is just a lot of filler, The stars are beating up these crappy dudes, and like that 6-man match with Sting, Dr. Death, and Nikita Koloff versus Green Hornet, Larry Stevens, and Cruel Connection number 2. Cruel Connection number 2.
That was what I was most curious about.
Cruel Connection number 2 looked like Green Man from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Not even cool. Cruel Connection he was super lame. Sting and Dr. Death and the other guy and Nikita looked really good. They went easy. And then last match, Ric Flair against a dude named Curtis Thompson, who did not look like a jobber. He was like a well-built looking dude. But Flair dominates. He makes him tap to the figure 4. And they cut a really cool promo at the end with him and J.J. Dillon. He says that Jim Crockett hates paying the Horsemen millions of dollars a year, but he has to because they're the best. Super awesome. Show ends. Promo City. If you guys want to watch great promos, pull up the NWA episodes on the network. Skip through the matches. The matches are a little meh, but the promos are great. One more interesting thing here. Virgil Runnels is credited as the producer at the end. And Virgil Runnels is Dusty, right? So,
okay.
Yeah. That was another cool little tidbit I noticed there. So that wraps up our retro wrestling. Sorry I made you guys watch bad wrestling, but hey, you got great promos. So
yeah, I chose one for next week, so I figured I'd shoot that out now while we're.
Yeah.
What do we have for next week?
Next week we're gonna get a little more current than that. Say about close to 10 years later. We're gonna go with WCW Nitro 111, October 27th, 1997. If you want to follow along at home on the WWE Network. It's right around Halloween, that show. I know it's getting to be fall season, so late 90s WCW is where it's at for me. So it'll be good to see. Rey Mysterio, I know, is in the card. Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So that should be pleasant. We'll talk about that next week.
Cool. And then let's get to the kind of the home stretch here, the Chikara recap. Anniversario Never Compromise 2013. The saddest moment I've had in wrestling was that show. Joey, walk us through it.
Man, if I was there live, I would have been pissed. Let's just say, I'm glad I wasn't. I almost went to it, but I I think it was in the wintertime.
I think, it was like,
So,
no, was it wintertime? Yeah, because it was season finale. No, it wasn't the season finale.
Was it? Maybe it
No,
was.
It wasn't the season. I think it was like in June.
Was it June? Okay, maybe it was. Because I wanted to go, but something happened and I couldn't go. But basically, this was like after this, they had matches and shows scheduled, like we talked about last week, in California and other states and cities they'd never even been to. And actually, people put online that they requested off of work and tried booking hotels for the California shows. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw that years ago when this went down. But people are pissed. A couple of people said they booked hotels, took time off of work for the California shows because they love Chikara and they never came out there. So they figured they saw those dates announced. But anyway, this show, if you haven't seen it and you're a Chikara fan, I mean, it's kind of a huge, important piece,
This is like, when you read comic books and there's the essential story arcs that you have to read, Green Lantern Rebirth or Hush and Batman or things of that nature, this is one of the key Chikara shows. Point blank, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, especially as a jumping point on for coming in now. I think anything pre-season 15, you need to see this to really enjoy what's going on now. That being said, I think that goes for a lot of things that have been happening for a long time in Chikara, like we keep pointing out, there's really long-term story development, so it's always hard to say where to jump on with Chikara.
Right. So let's walk through this.
All right, so it starts out with the opening match. I guess this was on iPay-per-view. I think I watched it. I imagine I ordered it back then. This was a free preview match. I don't know if this was on maybe the Periscope or whatever at the time, but this was the opening match. Was a Young Lions Cup matchup. The Young Lions Cup champion, Mr. Touchdown Mark Angelo Setti, defended against Saturnine. I don't know how to. I guess it's how you say it. I have a tough time saying that word.
No, you're right.
So that was a good match. I mean, Dasher was in his corner, Mr. Touchdown's corner. She came out right away with an early drop kick. I remember noticing. She meant business right away. And
yeah, I remember this being a good match for her. I wasn't always a huge fan of hers, and I felt like she kind of redeemed herself in that match for me.
Yeah, I've never seen too much of her, but she put on a pretty good performance. And Mr. Touchdown at the time, I mean, he's still doing all his power moves and everything, but totally different guy, you know what I mean? Just that goes to show you the seasons, how things change in Chikara and everything, and the crowd chanting Mr. Touchdown and everything compared to now, the dark Najmal Dune, Angelo Setti. So, but it was a good match. I mean, what'd you think about that?
I think it was good. I think, I really think it was a good opener,
Yeah.
Lions Cup, so there was something at play. Saturday was kind of up and coming, but I think it was a good kind of, and it wasn't really, there was some storyline in here with Touchdown and Dasher, but not as heavy as some of the stuff further down on the card. So I think it was good.
Yeah. She was it like a Hurricane Rana off the top or something like that she might have hit, and then she countered it into a pin. I mean, turned it into a pin, and then he kind of countered it back into a pin for the pinfall. So good match, good opening match. He retained his Young Lions Cup. It was his 6th defense. So
cool. Next, we had the Envoy against Colony Extreme Force. That was another all right match. It was all right. It was all right.
Yeah. I mean, Colony Extreme Force, if you don't know, it's Missile Assault and Orbit Adventure Ant and Arctic Rescue Ant, I believe it is. And then, pretty good match. Missile Assault Ant tried to remove Frymare's mask, get a couple points, you know, and some dirty heel stuff like that from the Colony Extreme Force.
Yeah, and it wound up winning. It was Hollow Wicked submitting Orbit, right?
Yeah, Chikara special. Hollow Wicked submitted Orbit Adventure Ant for the win for Spectre Envoy. Ryan, what did you think of that match?
My thoughts were I miss Orbit Adventurer Ant. He makes
agree.
me laugh, man. I love that gimmick, and I'm like, what happened to him? I don't remember any kind of story, but I know that there have been so many events that I haven't seen. There's still so many gaps in the story for me.
They killed him.
They being Deucalion killed him.
I believe
Condon,
so.
maybe something. Yeah.
It was either Deucalion. No, it might have been Condon. I think it was Condon. But yeah, because I remember that his helmet, Missile Assault Net, was like picked up his helmet, like didn't know what to do or whatever when that happened.
All right.
Yeah. Next match, Dasher Hatfield against Delirious, which I didn't kind of know the backstory as to why they were fighting.
Delirious and Dasher?
Yeah, there wasn't really anything heavy story-wise as to why they were fighting.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know the exact reason. I mean, I know Delirious was part of the materia at this time.
Yeah, with Ophidian and Cobalt.
So clearly he was a heel. I guess it might have just been Rudo Technico matchup for the pay-per-view, you know, get the crowd hot maybe. I don't know if they had like a real big
I don't think there was. I don't think there was. But this was another one.
I don't think there was either. It seemed like, Dasher was there to play the big Technico part. And
right.
Yeah.
The story kind of revolved around the Cobalt interference and all that stuff.
Yeah. He hits Dasher with the spear. And then Delirious hits the Shadows over Heck and gets the win, right?
Yeah. Shadows over Heck.
Next match was, I think this is
my favorite.
The best match. And it might be, I think, one of my all-time favorite Chikara matches. It was a trios match.
Yep.
Colony, Assailant, Fire Ant, Green Ant against Devastation Corporation. So, Joe, you walk us through that one.
To me, this was the best match on the card. All hell breaks loose pretty much the second the match starts while streamers are still in the ring, which I thought was pretty cool. You know, they started fighting right away. Just Devastation Corporation, man, when it was a trio, you know? Just think about it.
I know.
Think about
it was fresh, hot, and exciting. Yeah.
Dude, the heat from the crowd, you know, when they came out. And I specifically remember the heat. I know not really related to this, but King of Trios, when we were all there, I think it was not this past year, but the one before it, when they came out, when they were going to do the back-to-back, and the heat when they came out, man.
Oh, yeah, last year?
Yeah. So this match was cool, man. Max tossing Fire Ant off the stage. I thought that was pretty sick.
Well, then the Green Ant balcony died.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That was surprising, the huge crossbody or whatever that was there.
Yeah.
And then there's some good matchups, man. I mean, those guys – actually, Assailant actually kind of surprised me in that match, you know. Some pretty good stuff. Because, I mean, that's current Worker Ant, right? The same guy?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. I guess I kind of liked him a little bit better as Assailant, I think. Maybe. But
I like Worker Ant just fine. I think it works both ways.
Yeah. I mean, they did the 6 kicks to Blaster in the corner. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean,
Bacabella on the apron.
He interfered with the anthill. That was another good moment there. I think overall, like, in terms of action, story, you know, in-ring storytelling, this was overall the best match on the card.
Yeah. Definitely exciting. It was almost perfect, man, to me.
Yeah.
You know, it was really good.
Then the next match after this, which is kind of a hard act to follow after these guys tore down the Trocadero.
Did you even say the result of that match?
Did I? No, I was too
I don't
excited.
think you did. Okay, yeah, I think we just worked the crowd. Anyway, it was looks like a cloverleaf. I think it was. Green Ant makes blaster tap.
Yeah,
To a cloverleaf. So,
yep,
Colony wins that one.
Yeah, Colony wins. We go up to the next match. There's a little video packet with Amasis and Ophidian, and they're going through their blood feud. And I mean, speaking of feuds, this was really well built up, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the way they handled the build-up was really good. I think the match was more about trying to get the story over in terms of instead of like crazy action, although there was some action, but I think it was a heavily story-driven match. They brawl all over the place, kind of a stiff type match too.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I know there was a Death Valley Driver on the apron. It was sick. That was one of the big spots I remember. 450 by Amasis
this was
too.
Interesting. This is a technical aspect of the match, but last week we talked about Under the Hood, and then originally we had planned to go back and watch High Noon and kind of go back in time. So for Under the Hood, we saw Amasis kind of return and psych out. Ophidian caused him the loss and was still building up towards this match. Well, I went back and watched the previous year for the High Noon, and it was that was the day that Amasis announced his retirement. So I thought it was really interesting because I kind of got to see the full through line from Ophidian turning on Amasis to Amasis returning, coming back to the ring. And then this was like a really awesome way of like cementing Amasis's place like back into the Chikara story.
Yeah. No, I mean that feud and like even them tagging, just the history between those two is pretty wild, man.
Yeah, and the end was really cool too. After a failed Cobalt run-in, which Amasis kind of flipped him on the ramp. It was a pretty hard-looking bump. And then when Amasis is ready to put Ophidian away, Ophidian is like starts shouting and pleading for Amasis to kill him. So Amasis goes to take off his mask, and when he does, he's wearing an Amasis mask under it, like the original Amasis mask.
Yeah. I think right before that, did Ophidian hypnotize Amasis into the coffin?
He did.
Yeah. He walked him right up the ramp, right into the coffin, but then Amasis no-sold it and fought it off, which I thought was pretty cool.
Shoved him in the sarcophagus, closed the lid.
Oh, sarcophagus, yeah. I know. Yeah. Even on commentary, I think they slipped up a couple times. Not every day you get a sarcophagus match on a show.
Yeah, I mean, and we're used to the classic Undertaker casket match, right?
Yeah.
But
so as in you guys are right. Like it was really dense there in terms of what was going on with the story, and pulling off Ophidian's mask to reveal Amasis' mask. Like I still honestly can't wrap my head around what that actually meant. I read some weird theories talking about like alternate realities and like that was really another Amasis, or like Amasis had possessed Ophidian, or some crazy stuff, I mean, it's really hard to piece apart what exactly happened there, but there's something interesting about the fact that you can not necessarily understand exactly what happened, but still feel like, wow, that was a really powerful moment, and there was some kind of resolution there with the unmasking and showing Amasis' original mask. Yeah, it was very strange. Really cool.
I liked it. I think it was really cool in the sense like in the sense that it's like, when you watch a movie, if you watch like a TV show like Twin Peaks or something like that, where we don't really know the meaning, and people come up with what they believe the meaning meant. I like that it's open-ended ended, and it doesn't really tell you what it was. It just kind of gives you a little hint, and then people can run wild and think whatever they want to think. So I think that's one of the things Chikara does really good, right?
Yeah.
So we finished this grudge match, and I believe after that it's Gavin against Tim Donst in a hair versus hair match.
So Moss won the match, by the way. I don't know if we mentioned that again.
We did mention
it.
You
did? Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Yeah. You're trying. I know sold it.
No.
I know sold the colony, but on this one, Amos closes the sarcophagus.
Amos did win in kind of a wacky match, kind of at the end, you know.
And it was the longest match, the whole pay-per-view. I think it was
kind of long too.
Yeah,
20,
and there was actually,
minutes.
I think right before the Gavin Donst match, there might have been the Icarus promo.
With Marty Jannetty, the whole
Yeah, Marty Jannetty, the promo going into the match later with Kingston. But yeah, then it turned into Gavin versus Tim Donst in a hair match.
Which, even when it happened in the moment, I kind of wasn't invested here. I know Tim Donst, again, like we saw in Under the Hood, he's like the quintessential bully. And it's kind of the same thing. Him bullying Gavin fighting back. What you guys think of that whole thing?
Brian?
Yeah. It was interesting. Of course, you have. I think I still focused more on the Jakob and on the Donst. That I never fully understood what Donst's deal was. His story just went too far back for me to have a meaningful connection with him, or why he was having his whole psychotic breakdown over the Young Lions Cup and all that stuff. So I became invested in Jakob, which is cool because Jakob, as we've seen, remains an important part of the Chikara story, and I think will continue to be important for a long time.
And he was an important part in the story of this match, right?
Right, exactly.
His interference costs Donst the match. Donst spent the majority of the match beating up on Gavin, bullying Steve the Turtle Weiner and Jakob and Veronica. His interference causes he punches Donst. And
yes,
then,
with the punch, which is awesome because they've been building up the punch thing as well, even recently. So that's establishes early on. It's like, wow, this is the punch that took out Tim Donst. That's also the one that's being sold as, it's rivaling now the back fist to the future.
Right.
He had his match against Eddie Kingston.
Right. He wins. Gavin Lanspeaker wins. Donst gets his head shaved inside the ring. Done deal. So after that, there's two more matches. The 2 out of 3 falls match between Piece of Hate, which is Jigsaw and the Shard, against 3.0. I remember this being a pretty good match. And this was kind of at the height of 3.0's powers. Jigsaw in his heel persona as he is currently. I think overall pretty good, and a really good kind of a palate cleanser for two because it's sandwiched in between two heavy storyline matches, which is Gavin and Tim Donst, and then Eddie Kingston and Icarus. This was more just purely competition. I think overall it was pretty good. What y'all think?
Definitely a solid technical match. I think it had just enough story to make it still feel big, feel important, but also just like you said, palate cleanser. Build the energy up. I think Pieces of Hate. I love to hate that team. I love to hate the Shard. I thought he always had one of the most easily make funnable in a Chikara type way. I love to call him the Shard. I still think it's hilarious. And so I love that team, Pieces of Hate, and I love 3.0. So that's a winning combination to me.
Yep, and it kind of 2 out of 3 falls. The first fall goes to Shard and Jigsaw. Shard rolls up. I think it was Shane Matthews. Not sure. He rolls with someone. He gets the roll-up win. I think it was Scott Parker. Gets the roll-up win. Go to the second fall. And they're finishing maneuver. They're double team. By they, I mean Parker and Matthews. And they pin the Shard. Third fall, it starts getting more of a brawl. And then I believe it ends with the Shard tapping someone out. If you guys remember correctly.
I don't have results notes like right here for this.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll go. But yeah, I think the Shard and
Shane passes out in the ankle lock.
Yeah, and that's
I have some notes. I suck.
And that was it. It was again a fun match, but nothing really crazy. And this brings us to the conclusion of the show, which is, I think, in terms of like indie wrestling history, one of the craziest moments ever, which is Jigsaw. No, I'm saying not Jigsaw. Eddie Kingston against Icarus for the Grand Championship. Eddie Icarus with the whole Marty Jannetty no showing. He's wearing a Marty Jannetty inspired outfit. It's really physical. Like Kingston beats the crap out of him, and I think like he hits him with with a fist or a back fist or something, and like you can see that Icarus is like legitimately loopy at parts of this match. Like he's having a hard time. I think like shoot wise getting through the match. I think the area of most consequence is how it ends, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Or rather, doesn't end.
Or rather,
does it really end? I mean, it's
walk us through that last segment.
Just the ending of it, I guess.
Yeah, walk us through the ending, because this is kind of like Heartbreak City for Eddie Chikara.
I mean, I guess the match is still going on, and then was it just Condor security? It just came flooding down the.
Icarus had Eddie Kingston in the Chikara special in the middle of the ring.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we were seconds away from a decision.
Right. This was like probably Icarus was going to win the title. At this point, the Wing Officer's all like disheveled right by the entrance, I think, and Condor storms in. And they pull Bryce, and they start telling people, and they start telling people to leave.
Demanding fans to leave the arena, yeah. So
Yeah, so there's a no decision because they shut it down, and they start tearing the stage entrance area, and Wing's standing there kind of like Nero, watching Rome burn, right? And it kind of ends with a balcony shot, and you hear a woman say, "Is that Archibald Peck?" And it just goes dark and it ends.
Yeah.
And I remember when this happened, like, everyone online didn't know what the hell happened. Like, there was people saying, like, legit, they got kicked out of the Trocadero. I heard a story about someone breaking a window.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Shoot life, not in work life. And it generates one of the most, I guess, controversial, but I guess craziest, most creative angles in the history of wrestling, which they shut down a company for a year because of this storyline. And I mean, we're not going to get into if this was completely because of this, but just solely history in the story. This was the reason Chikara shut down. And I remember like being really sad that I thought like, I thought this was the end, and they were just ending it in a storyline. And I know a lot of people were also sad about this, but whatever it may be, I think it kind of, because I know people who just said, I'm not watching Chikara again. If this is a work, never watching it again.
Yeah.
People, do you know anyone that didn't come back?
I do, personally.
Really? I think
Yeah.
that's so interesting because, I was reading some old posts where people were legitimately pissed off even just from buying the pay-per-view and saying, oh, they just ripped us off. They stole that match finish from us, which I think is just so hilarious. It's like, uh, even if it was the last thing that happened to Chikara, I mean, you can't say that it wasn't like masterfully done to
it
make you
was.
feel like what happened was real.
To
No,
elicit,
for sure. But I think just the unknown afterwards was kind of like upsetting to people,
but to elicit those kinds of reactions, it's like the moment had to be that powerful, and it had to be such an emotional build, not just from the event or the storylines building up to Adversario, but overall people's fandom with Chikara. And there's no other company that has ever, in my opinion, can do things like that, where they take you these emotional roller coasters that you're wondering, are they coming back? Are they not? I'm angry. I miss seeing Chikara. I miss watching all these guys. I don't think anyone has ever done that the way Chikara did. But again, like you said, Joey, this is really true. There's a time between Anniversario and then when they start coming in with the whole Ashes.
Yeah.
Spoiler, like little mini videos of uncertainty. And that's where people's imaginations kind of either ran wild for the negative, not negative, but they were like, I'm out, I'm frustrated, they're not giving me closure if this is really the end.
Yeah. And then they put up like all the Wrestling Is companies and had all those little shows and everything. And I mean, there's so many little things, man. Like all those little Wrestling Is companies spelled out the word Chikara, if you realized it, if you took one letter from each one of the words. No one really knows why they went down for about a year. I mean, no, I don't even want to speculate or anything.
Yeah, no, and that's not really, I guess, the point, right? I mean,
it kind of is in a sense because it all led up to that night. You know what I mean? To where like this was a plan for years. I'm thinking because even with the whole No Private Army blog, I don't know if you ever checked that out. But
yeah, I remember that.
Some of the stuff on there, I mean, it's been years and years in the making. Even the websites with the Teeter conglomerate and all that stuff. Like that stuff's been around for years. So it's like for this stuff to be a plan, it's kind of mind blowing to wonder what the reason is that, you know what I mean? This all was set up to go dark for a year or so.
I think so too. I don't really think it was something that happened like blunt, like a knee jerk. We're gonna make this angle. Like someone, I don't think they did it like a month before. I agree with you. I think this was like carefully planned out that it was eventually going to happen, and they just decided, all right, everything's in place. This is what's going to happen, and kind of the rest is history, right? They came back after a year-ish of going, dark. They came out with a movie, and I think overall, conclusion, there hasn't been an emotional roller coaster like what happened after Anniversary, in my opinion, in wrestling.
Right.
Period. Like the only thing. Go ahead, Ryan.
I think you should go and I'll try to follow up.
I was just gonna say that the only thing that compares to that in terms of me being emotionally pulled in one direction, or be it positive, anger, happiness, whatever, might be when Hogan turned and they formed the NWO. Those are the two biggest emotional reactions I've gotten watching wrestling.
Okay, so that's really interesting because it kind of is going along the same lines that I was about to say, which is both of those moments have in common that they take something that is, from the story. It's something that should be shocking if Luke Skywalker turns the dark side, or if Superman, joins the Legion of Doom. That's crazy. And that should be weird, but also it was something in the industry that was surprising and kind of unexpected. same thing for this storyline. You know, it happens so often. It's this huge trope in pro wrestling that one of the main motivation for your monster heel stables is that they are going to take control of the promotion, and they're going to destroy the promotion, and they're going to tear it down. And you never really get to see that happen all the way because, well, you can't shut down WWE for a month, or, I mean, that would just be insane. You can't do that.
Right.
This was the one and only time I think that we'll ever get to see the full life cycle of a wrestling promotion from birth to death, and then to see it after Ashes. Really, I love that theme there of you know, like they came back from death. They're coming. It's like they've been rebirthed into their new, fully confident selves. I love the progress and the strides that they've made since Never Compromise happened. Everything with Chikartopia and all that. Now it's just wow, such a huge amount of momentum coming out of them closing down for a year. It's hard at this point in time to look back and say, well, that was a bad idea.
No, I agree. And I think like any journey, this was like any arc, and you said it correctly. You said it. You put it right on the money, Ryan. You know, the story arc of the birth, evolution, death, and rebirth of Chikara has been just pretty awesome. I think overall, and I think there's I would highly recommend it. This is one of the quintessential Chikara shows for anyone. So I think just kind of one last closing thought on this show from each of us, and then we'll wrap this thing up. We'll start, Joey, calling you.
Man, I would just say, like a DevCorp Colony match from earlier on, like I said, was just, if you only watch one match on the show, if you really only had time, make time for that one.
I would say that one and Kingston Icarus.
In the main event, just out of what happens and everything. Right. And I just want to quickly say, I was I think after that show, they did like a National Pro Wrestling Day, not too much like soon, but maybe about 6 months later. And that's when they kind of teased and announced they were coming back, you know. And I was at the return show, and the crowd was hot, man, for that one. And I want to say there was probably well over 1,000 people for that show at the Funplex when they returned, and it was just a real hot show. So like in the future, we could review that one, you know, just to kind of get an idea of not next week, but you know, down the line, get an idea of what it was like once they came back and everything, you know.
Cool.
But you chose an episode. Sorry, you chose an episode for next week, right? Real quick.
Joshi Mania Night 1.
Joshi Mania Night 1. If you want to follow along at home on Chikaratopia, we'll watch that for next week.
Kind of continuing the theme that King of Trios lost this year. We'll continue it a little bit.
Yeah.
Ryan, last closing thoughts on Anniversary?
Just what a wild ride. I looking back on it, such an amazing thing. We'll never see an event like that again. I don't think in pro wrestling. So definitely something to go back and watch if you haven't seen it. And so many mysteries, just great stories, some good matches. Yeah, perfect.
I think for me, it boils down like when we compared that moment to Hogan and the NWO. There's two massive moments in the history of wrestling that are so gray and that we don't know what's real, what's not, what does this mean. I think that was what adds the whole other level of emotion and people just wanting to know what happens, because it's kind of like, is this real? Is this fake? Why is this happening? Who's behind this? All that stuff. And I think those two moments are good examples of that being executed in a massive scale. And that's kind of the thing with the end of that show. But overall, again, like I said, one of the saddest, and now that I look back about it, it's great, but in the moment it was pretty sad. So we'll end that with that. So we'll close out with shout outs, plugs, all that stuff. Joey?
Yeah, I recently changed my Twitter handle because it was a little bit confusing for people. So Joey Shoots, JoeyShoots, kind of just exactly how it sounds. I want to shout out Longbox Heroes, comic book podcast, like I mentioned before, hosted by LF Chikara of Chikara Wrestling, and Todd Roker the Joker on Twitter. It's a great podcast to talk pretty much everything comics, current. You know, they got they do kind of a fun thing where they guess what the other person's favorite comic book of the week's going to be, or the one they're looking most forward to the week and everything. And they do the Pigskin Pick'ems, which we're a part of, actually, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, and they're a part of the soon-to-be-named network, STBN Network on Twitter, Longbox Heroes on Twitter. They put out 2 weekly shows, Longbox Heroes on Wednesdays, the comic book show, and they do like an After Dark on Fridays, just kind of shoot the shit and just talk about kind of whatever's in their mind. Yeah. So check those guys out, and thanks for the support.
Yeah, I'll plug it at Talkin Gimmicks on Twitter. Follow us, interact with us. We've got kind of a side project that we're right now working on the logistics, but basically kind of a side episodes where we talk to people that are either involved in wrestling or people that we know from the community, and we just talk gimmicks, you know, what kind of stuff they like. We'll talk just kind of just a little mini discussion, questions. I'll probably ask everyone Raw or Nitro, Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo, you know, keep questions in life. And then I'm at Julio_DA for anything. Ryan?
Find me at Twitter at WordView, like Worldview without the L. I'm also on Instagram on that way. You can find me at a lot of places with that handle. You can also find my beekeeping business at Twitter, WeBeeKeepin, WeBeeKeepin.
Yeah.
If you want to talk bees.
Cheap plug, man. Get those bees.
Yeah. You got to get that honey.
That's right.
And that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue next week to the Backyard Wrestling with podcast, and we'll see you then.
All right. See you.
Deuces.